My 30-year mortgage extends into my retirement. I'm only 51 right now. Should I consider paying it down a little faster so it pays off when I retire before I retire?
30-year mortgage. So 51.
Yeah.
Okay. So say didn't say when they're going to retire. I guess we'll say 65. So 14 years.
Yeah.
Got quite a few options there. I will make one interesting comment. I've been doing this for 37 years. 20 years ago, a lot of people, most of my clients had no mortgage in retirement. There's a lot more people with mortgages in their retirement now. And it's not just because houses cost more. It's like a willingness to have leverage
Yeah.
in the situation. So one of the things that I look at is kind of what happens to the overall outflow versus inflow situation. So I have a certain amount of money I have to put out in order to live in my retirement. Some of that is discretionary. I could eat out or I could cook at home. I could travel internationally. I could take a car trip, right?
Yeah.
Those are discretionary things I can cut back on. I have a mortgage or I don't have a mortgage. I can't cut back. If things fall apart and I'm spending $3,000, whatever, just say it's $3,000 a month, I can't get rid of that $3,000 a month. And so then I have to look at the other side. What do I have coming in? So I have a lot of Social Security and pension, let's say in one scenario.
Yep.
More than enough to cover that $3,000 and all my basic expenses. We don't have a lot of clients in this category, but if you're in that category, holding on to that debt is probably okay.
Yeah,
right?
especially if you have a lower rate.
Yeah, especially if you have a lower rate. Exactly. And so on the other hand, let's take somebody who has Social Security but is getting a lot of their income off of the stock and bond market. So they've got this variable income coming in that is really being used to kind of pay this mortgage, right? And I can't get rid of that mortgage. And now I'm 75 years old. I can't get a job either because I've been out of the workforce for 10 years, that kind of thing. I would like to have that kind of fixed cost reduced as much as possible. If I'm going to be retired, I really wouldn't want to have that mortgage payment to pay, irregardless of so even if the rate is low. Some people say, oh, you keep it because the rate's low because I can make more money over here. Well, what happens if that over there doesn't work, right? And we end up in the next Great Depression or whatever might be happening. And now you've got this mortgage payment that you can't get rid of. And so I look at what I'd like to have in retirement is that, fixed amount of money that I have to spend is really, really low. Now I might spend a lot more than that, but it's discretionary. I get to decide. And if things are good, I spend more on things that I really like. And when things aren't, I cut back.
Yeah.
And so I have that flexibility. So the mortgage payment reduces that flexibility, irregardless. And again, unless you have a lot of Social Security and pension to cover all of that fixed cost, so it's sort of like fixed incomes, covering fixed costs, right? That's good, but most people don't. And so we're relying upon the stock and bond market, which is inherently unstable.
Yeah, but if you're willing to take on more risk, you could have a better possibility if you were to invest that money and then pay a lump sum at your retirement, in theory. Because with 14 years, on average, the market is up in those 14 years periods.
Yeah.
And so you could get more money in your long term by doing that.
I think there was only one 10-year period where the market was down, ending in 2009. So 14-year period, probability is that you would have made money, right? Yeah. And most likely even made more money than the cost of the mortgage itself. So you take that extra amount of money that you were going to put in your mortgage for the next 14 years, you put it into the S&P 500 or whatever. There is some risk there, just in the sense that you get to retirement, all of a sudden the Lehman Brothers situation happens and the market's falling apart, and now you can't get rid of the mortgage. Maybe you split the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, you could split the difference.
Right. Part of it just goes into extra payment. Part of it goes into this, investing. I like that. Yeah. And so it does make a difference as to what the rate is. So if I got like me, I have a 2 3/4 point, mortgage right now. I could probably beat that.
I feel a lot easier beating that than like a 5 or 6% mortgage.
Well, it's 7.2 right now. So I got 7.2% mortgage. I'm going to wonder about the S&P's ability to make
Yeah,
sure, because I don't know how many years out of say 100 out of 100 years that the S&P 500 made more than over a 14-year period made more than 7.2%.
yeah, paying off debt's kind of a guarantee of a
Yeah,
return.
yeah, exactly. So no, it's a great question. We get asked that type of thing quite often. I'm a pretty big believer in trying to have no debt entering retirement, and I am seeing that happen less often.
Yeah, I think because mortgage rates have been quite low for a few, like a decade,
Right.
people are more inclined to keep it
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
previous decades.
Yeah. I just from my own personal preference and working with this for the last 37 years, just understand that even if you have a 2.75% rate, it is still a guaranteed outflow that you must make. You have to take a look at what you're getting your inflows from.
Yeah.
Where are they coming from? So I would look at pension, Social Security as being fairly secure. So that would offset that fixed outflow. That's great. So analyze those. I would look at rent as kind of being in that next level, pretty secure in most places, but not as secure as say Social Security, but secure. And then I look at the stock and bond market being at that next level of kind of unusual returns. We show that big chart at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
It's not a straight line by any stretch of imagination. So having said that, when we do plans and we take the stock and bond market out and we say, hey, we just put all this money in the bank, they almost all fail. So we actually need the stock and bond market, to work over the long term, and it has. So anyway, that's a pretty interesting question altogether. I would personally, I guess from this whole conversation, I might split the difference. If I had an extra 1,000 a month that I could use, I thought would pay off. I'm making up a number. I thought would pay off that mortgage by the time I got to my retirement. I might put 500 into the mortgage and 500 into something like the S&P 500, which I like. It's simple, it's cheap. And then at the end of the time, hopefully I have more than enough to pay off the mortgage with a lump sum. And boom, I go into my retirement, and maybe I have some left over in that
Yeah,
S&P 500.
if you can grab a CD for a 10-year that
Right.
outpays your mortgage,
Right.
maybe that's a way you can
Yeah,
go. Then you're
yeah.
guaranteed in a sense.
Problem is, it's usually it would assume that then you have a lump sum now
Yeah.
to pay it, and oftentimes when people are looking at that, because that's a totally different question. I have enough money right now to pay off my mortgage
Yeah.
versus should I pay it off over time?
Yeah, that's true.
It is different scenario. So if it's 500 a month, dollar cost averaging is awesome into something like variable like the S&P 500, and that can help you too. So anyway, it's a good question. I prefer to not have that debt personally. That's been my advice with my clients for quite a while.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't have to be financially optimal to actually have a good situation.
Yep.